Hey, what's up everybody? This is David Drinks coming to you from the Med Gym, and I wanted to take a minute to talk to you today about some tips and some principles for building your ideal workout routine. Now, this is something that we do every week and every day here with clients at the Med Gym. We help them to build their ideal workout routine. And so I wanted to give you a little bit of an idea and a look behind the curtain as to how we approach building exercise routines and how you can take some of these principles, some of these tips, and go ahead and start working them into your exercise routine. We see a lot of people who come into us and they've either had an idea of exercise that was given to them maybe 20, 30 years ago when they were in middle school or high school gym class that really is not up to date with what we recommend for people for exercise, or they've just have no idea of what they should do or how to set up an exercise routine. So we like to guide them along that path, and I wanted to give you a couple of ideas of how you can build your ideal workout routine today. So I'm a guy who always needs to have a framework and to build around principles when I'm approaching just about anything. And so especially when I took a look at how I'm going to be building exercise routines, what are some of the underlying principles that I'm going to use, I started to develop a framework that I'm going to work around. And so I wanted to first talk to about a couple of principles of exercise program design that you can think within that are going to make it a lot easier for you to choose which exercises you're doing, which ones you're not, and how you set up your overall routine. So the first principle is to use functional exercises that carry over to everyday life. Now, this is something that is gaining a lot more popularity in today's fitness world, but it's not too long ago that selectorized training equipment and bodybuilding type workout routines where you focus on specific muscles like your biceps and triceps, your quads and hamstrings, rather than focusing on human movement patterns, was a popular way of designing exercise routines. And you still see it if you go into most commercial gyms or most large facilities today. You have the lineup of selectorized exercise equipment that is really a big piece of metal machinery that is designed to take you through a predefined range of motion. So you're going to have your seated rowing machine that only lets you do this. You're going to have your seated overhead press machine that's got handles that only lets you go in one range of motion. And so they have this whole lineup of selectorized exercise equipment, and really that became very popular because it fit the model of a health club or a fitness facility rather than being the best option for you to get your ideal workout. So, it fit the health clubs and the gyms that put them in because they could get a lot of people through their facility in a shorter amount of time. It allowed people to exercise safely, so they didn't need trainers on hand to show everyone how to do specific movements. And it also followed in line with a lot of the bodybuilding craze that had developed on, focusing on specific muscle groups like Arnold did. And so once we develop a approach to movement and to exercise that is a little more focused on how humans move, we focus on functional exercise that moves away from specific muscle groups and exercise machines and gets us back to exercise that is going to translate over to real life sporting activity or real life movement. The second principle I wanted to talk to you about is the principle of fitting the exercise routine to the individual rather than fitting the individual to your predefined exercise routine or your equipment that you have available. And this is an important concept because I think a lot of times, whether it's a gym out there that has all their selectorized training equipment, or it's a facility that has kind of their own model of this is how we exercise and everyone has to fit into this model or this cookie cutter workout routine. Instead of that mindset, we want to make sure that we are fitting the exercise to the individual. And that could mean a couple of different things in different situations, but the biggest things that we want to make sure we're focusing on are, number one, injury history and medical history. So if someone has an injury or a medical limitation that's going to prevent them from doing specific things, then they can't have that in their exercise routine. We have to make sure that it's a fit for them and not just a fit for what we want to attain. And we also want to make sure that we're keeping in mind individual goals. We're making sure that the exercise routine is tailored to someone who wants to lose weight or wants to lose fat versus someone who wants to build muscle, or someone who has sport and athletic goals rather than just someone who wants to move better in daily life. And so fitting the exercise routine to the individual and not the other way around is one of the biggest principles that we try to abide by. So those two first principles that I talked about, the need for functional exercise that transitions over to daily life or to regular sporting activity, or the principle of fitting the exercise routine to the individual and not vice versa, are the first two and really the biggest ones that I look at when designing an exercise routine. And there's plenty of more principles that we can talk about. There's principle of specificity, that we want to make sure that the stress we're imposing in a workout specifically transfers over to the outcome that we're looking to achieve. There's principle of progressive overload, that we want to make sure that we're always causing the body to adapt to a new stimulus, so we're progressively adding challenge, and there could be a number of different ways to do that. There's the principle of variety, making sure that we don't do the same exact movements or the same exact loading over the course of time. We're adding enough variety to cause progress. So there's a number of different underlying principles there, but the biggest two are making sure that we're doing the right type of exercise that's going to translate over to regular life the best, and that we're making sure we fit the exercise routine to the individual. So that's a lot of the framework and the underlying principles that we use here at the Med Gym to start designing exercise routines for each person, to make sure it's going to not only get them to the goal that they want to get to, but it's also going to help them move better, feel better, live better, and transition what they're doing in the gym to feeling better and moving better in regular life. And so I'm going to come back with a second video to this and talk about a little more of the nitty-gritty about what components of each workout routine you really should have, from warm up to finish. And so we'll get a little more into the details there, but that's the start. Is you always have to start from a principle-based standpoint, having a framework for what you're doing, not just doing what someone tells you because it's their idea, their theory on exercise, not just doing something because you don't really have any up-to-date information, but making sure you have principles that aren't going to change, that you're centered around, and then you can build an ideal workout routine from there.